Is it just me, or is there something a little magical about those cute ballet skirts? Or maybe just me, since I probably watched too many princess movies and dreamed about dancing career at some point. But anyway, today we're making a ballet-inspired mini wrap skirt, so grab that piece of fabric you bought a long time ago thinking you would make something with it, but never did. I know you have one. Find the pattern link in the description and let's begin! First, let's start with printing the pattern. You can print the pattern in either A0 or A4 letter format depending on your preference. The layout section allows you to select the sizes you want to print. Before the printing, take a moment to check your settings. Make sure the paper size is correct and most importantly, set the scale to actual size or 100%. If you chose to print your pattern at home, it's time to assemble the pages. I know this part isn't everyone's favorite, but I like to think of it as putting together a big, satisfying puzzle. Personally, I found the fastest and easiest way is to use a paper cutter and metal ruler, then tape everything together with duct tape. But of course, you can use any method that works for you the best. Once your pattern pages are assembled, you can either cut your size directly or transfer it onto transparent film. I prefer using film as it's more durable and easier to work with. If you're new to sewing, you might notice markings like center back, cut on fold. This means that you're only seeing half of the pattern piece and it needs to be mirrored. I like to transfer the full piece for convenience, but this step is optional as you can simply flip the pattern along the cut on fold edge to create the mirror side or cut it on folded fabric. I wanted the skirt in a soft pastel color, and while going through my fabrics, I spotted this beautiful shade of yellow that I hadn't used in a while. It was just sitting there, looking a little forgotten, so of course I had to give it its moment. Now it's time to cut the fabric. When working with skirts, especially the shorter ones, it's always a good idea to check if pattern length is comfortable for your height. If you're unsure, it's better to cut a skirt a little longer so you can adjust it later for your preferred length. If this is your first time cutting the fabric, you will notice that each pattern piece includes the piece name, the number of pieces you need to cut, a green line arrow, and sometimes small notches. It is important to place your pattern pieces following the green line to ensure the garment hangs correctly, and don't forget to mark the notches. If your fabric is plain and double-sided, you can flip the pattern pieces as needed as long as you're still following the green line. However, if your fabric has a print or directional texture, make sure all pieces are placed in the same direction so the design doesn't appear upside down. At this point, I remembered why I hadn't used this fabric much. I could only find one less perfectly matching spool of thread, even though I actually need 5 in total, 1 for the sewing machine and 4 for the overlocker. If you ever find yourself in the same situation, you can use a simple trick: wind extra bobbins and use them in the overlocker instead of regular thread spools. This works very well, especially if you don't have many seams to finish. Once the machines are ready, it's time to start sewing. I like to begin by connecting the skirt panels. Here I'm attaching the front overlap panels to the back panel at the side seams, placing them right sides together and sewing and finish them using 1 cm seam allowance. Since my machine uses 4 threads, it can sew and overlock in one step. If your overlocker uses 3 threads, you'll need to sew the seams first and then finish them separately. And if you don't have an overlocker, you can use a zigzag or overcast stitch to finish the edges. After that, press the seams so they lie smooth and flat. Next, double fold the skirt edges to create a 1 cm hem. For a more precise finish, you can mark a line 2 cm from the edge. Then, fold and press the fabric to that line, creating even 1 cm fold. Once the third fold is set, fold and press it again to enclose the raw edge. This technique results in a clean, crisp, and professional-looking hem. This pressing step can take some time, but once it's complete, it brings a real sense of progress. It almost feels like the piece is already halfway finished. Now, using the edge of your sewing machine foot as a guide, stitch along the folded hem to secure the finish. Next, join the waistband pieces, placing them right sides together and sewing within 1 cm seam allowance between the notches. Once that is complete, attach the wrap skirt tie pieces, placing them right sides together. At this point, we've made a lot of progress on the skirt. Press the waistband seams open, then fold one edge of the waistband by 1 cm and press it into place. This step will make the final seam much cleaner and easier to finish. Then, fold the tie pieces lengthwise, right sides together. Pin them at the beginning, middle and the end to ensure alignment. Then stitch along the edge using 1 cm seam allowance. Sewing between the notches created beautiful openings. Top stitch along the seam to secure the pressed edges. Press the tie seams open, then fold the tips precisely at the seam line. This small technique makes turning the ties to the right side much easier and helps the seam and corners turn out clean and sharp. The skirt is now really coming together. Attach the right side of the waistband to the wrong side of the skirt. Align and pin at center back, side seams, and waistband edges to ensure everything sits evenly. Joining a straight edge to a curved edge can sometimes be tricky, so take your time and use as many pins as needed, then stitch using 1 cm seam allowance. Now press the waistband seam so it lies smooth and flat. Fold the waistband lengthwise, bringing the folded edge to meet the seam line, then press it into place. At this stage, it's nice to see how the previously folded edge comes into place, making the finishing process much easier and perfectly even. Finally, stitch along the edge to secure the waistband. As a final step, add extra top stitching at the waistband opening to reinforce the area and ensure it remains strong and secure. That's it for today. Let me know how your skirt turned out or save this video for later. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.